the Germans come up with this idea of like, okay, how do we interpret this text? How do we understand this text? Because precisely with ancient text, there's always going to be different opinions and perspectives on things. So therefore, I'm saying from the Christian perspective, if we say it from the Christian perspective, it is a book that you inherited that is within the same tradition that you believe Jesus is from.
Wait, hold on. Sorry.
It's not a separate text.
The reason why I don't understand your criticism, there's Messianic Jews. They read the Old Testament and your criticism is saying, from what I understood, is you basically saying, okay, when you're a Christian, you read the Old Testament with a Christian lens, and then you compare the Old Testament with the New Testament, and then you then say that the New Testament is a completion or fulfillment of the Old Testament. But there's Messianic Jews, there's people within a Jewish tradition that understand the Old Testament to be compliant with the New Testament. So what we say is, under the Christian interpretation, okay, our view, including the Messianic Jews, is far more parsimonious than the Jewish view. And then we say, okay, then our view is correct from there. But you're giving criticisms on silence. You're not really giving us a contrary.
And obviously, it's a bit unfair because you just came, so you didn't know what we're talking about. The overall point I was making was that he was saying that there is the lineage of Jesus is within the text, right? Because I said that Muhammad descends from Ishmael. Right? And he says, but where's the evidence for it? I said, it's within our tradition, it's within the text, it's within our tradition. And then he said, and I asked him, where's your evidence for Jesus' lineage? He says, it's within the text. I said, look, if that's the case, then we're both in the same boat. And that's the argument.
I don't think it's the same boat, because your tradition presupposes the pre-existence and the accuracy of our tradition. Our tradition doesn't presuppose the accuracy of yours. Our tradition does not rely on yours.
Okay, this is a different argument. I'm just simply saying that circular argument here, meaning you're relying, in order to prove something, relying on the text that you abide by. Okay, that's what secular argument is, right? You're relying on a text that is not outside of the evidence that you can provide, right? So that's what we were arguing.
But the problem is, if someone comes up to you and says, okay, you believe that Muhammad is a Ishmaelite, can you give me the evidence for that? And then you say, okay, how can you give me the evidence of your Jesus? I don't see
I gave him evidence. I said, one,
that's not evidence though, right? That's not evidence. If you say that Muhammad came from the Ishmaelites because of what Muhammad or the Ibns, or I don't know the Islamic theology, but whatever the Islamic theologians told you, right?
No, but exactly. So now you understand each other. Then I say the exact same thing applies to Jesus.
It cannot apply.
And it does, because everything that you know about Jesus and his lineage is within the text. You believe in. So it's the same thing.
But what's the distinction between the Christians and the Jews?
There's no distinction.
What do you mean? There is a distinction, right?
If you're talking about the early Christians, because we're talking about Jesus, right?
Yes.
The early Christians were Jewish. They were abiding by the law. They kept Sabbath.
And when they took the genealogy from David to explain Jesus' theology in the Gospel of Matthew, right? They took from another religion, from another tradition. Sorry.
It's not another tradition.
The Jewish tradition.
It literally was not another tradition. This is why Jesus comes, because there's an accusation being made against Jesus.
I'm talking about the Old Testament.
No, I'm saying to you, look, there's an accusation being made against Jesus. Meaning, some of the Pharisees are perceiving Jesus as an outsider who has come to corrupt the law and the tradition. Therefore, Jesus says, look, I have not come to what?
That doesn't mean he was not Jewish.
No, I'm saying he's clearly seeing himself as part of the tradition already.
No, I'm not talking about that.
There is no separation.
Look, Jesus is a fulfillment of the tradition. Okay.
So therefore, there's no separation.
Okay. The definition of a tradition is a transmission of cultural laws and ceremonial acts. The transmission. The Christian tradition is obviously different from the Jewish tradition. But the Christian moral law is a fulfillment of the Jewish moral law. That's the difference.
No.
So yes, it is a different tradition.
Hold on, we're talking about the Prophet Muhammad and his claim, and we're talking about Jesus and his claim.
Okay, so now
about post Paul. I'm not talking about what happened.
What I'm telling you is that We derive the genealogy of Jesus from a prior tradition, and that's where we got an
But
argument.
how can it be a prior tradition if the very person who claims to be of the tradition affirms that he's part of the tradition? Also, the people who encounter him see him as a continuation of the tradition.
Yeah, it's a continuation
Yeah,
of
but
the
a
moral
continuation-
law.
No,
Of
not
the
just-
moral
no,
law. Jews don't take Eucharist.
No, not just the moral law, as in who he is. I'm talking about who
Yeah,
he is.
he is Jewish.
Yeah.
I understand
So,
you.
and this is what we're talking about. We're talking
But
about
here's the
lineage.
thing. Jews that do not believe in Messiah, Jews that do not believe in
that
the Trinity or
interpretation.
whatnot,
those
right?
Interpretations.
Understood that he's the Messiah, some of them, and
Yeah.
became Messianic Jews that started following his law.
Yeah, some of
Where
them.
so we don't depend on the Jews to explain to us our tradition. We already have Jews.
Of course you do.
Listen, we don't depend on the Jews.
Yeah.
We don't depend on the Jews. What we have is a tradition,
Yeah.
right? Our tradition does not depend on Judaism for its truth. Judaism is a religion predicated on the tradition,
Yeah.
right? So now, because Christianity will still be Christianity without flipping
No, but
Judaism.
what you don't seem to understand is Christianity becomes.
Yeah,
In the
I agree.
passage of time, it
I-
becomes.
look, listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Christianity is not contingent
Yeah.
on something external to it for its truth.
Of course,
But your religion is. That's the distinction.
No, but so is Christianity. Why are you quoting passages from the Old Testament then?
What do
Why
you mean?
No, but
we
why,
believe.
but
Look,
why? If you're saying it's not contingent up on something else, why don't
Because-
you just stick to the
what did he say? What did he say before this? Before my statement? You said Christ is the fulfillment of the law. Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. You answered your own question.
No, but then if he's a fulfillment of the law, in order to fulfill anything, there has to be something prior to it. So the necessity is there.
Yes. Okay. And then guess what? Guess what? What's prior to it is what? The Jewish tradition, right? The
Yeah,
Jewish tradition,
yeah.
right? And what is there? An intermediate link between the Jewish tradition and the Christian tradition. When someone asks you, what is the evidence for the Muhammad or whatnot, they're asking for an intermediate link
Yeah, but that's-
between Christianity and Islam.
there
But you
isn't
cannot
any-
give that.
No, but if you're using that criteria,
Yeah.
there isn't one for Jesus either. There's one for
That doesn't
Jesus.
make sense.
No, it isn't.
You just said with your own mouth that
Yeah.
Jesus is the fulfillment of the law.
No, but when
unless you're a Jew.
No, but the reason why I'm like that because I'm a bit more tolerant and I understand history quite. The reason, let me finish.
Yeah, go on.
Like the reason why I say this is because I'm more tolerant and I'm a bit more elastic on the way I understand history. Okay, my understanding of history is slightly different. I don't have this cut through approach to history because I know that's not how history works. Jesus Christ, for 30 years plus, is unknown, okay, to most of the people. And he comes into Jerusalem because Jerusalem is the center of the spirituality of the Jewish people, of the children of Israel. And he comes in as an unknown person. And the reason why he's unknown is because the direct link between him and Moses and whatever was in between isn't necessarily established. So Jesus has to establish himself, and this is why he has these miracles. The miracles are there to prove his claims.
Yeah.
So, therefore, on a clinical level, if you want to be very clinical, then you will have to say, well, if I look at Jesus' trajectory, he also doesn't have a direct link per se in that way, other than being Jewish. His way of convincing the children of Israel is in various ways. It's not just through lineage. It's through miracles. For some people, according to the Christian, it's the crucifixion, right? And various of things. So that's the point I'm trying to make. So there is also a gap if you want to be clinical then, you see? Because if you look at Jewish history in particular, you will find there are sometimes thousands of years of nothing until another prophet comes in. But they just uphold things via oral tradition.
Yeah. But here's the thing. You're forgetting one thing.
Yeah.
You're forgetting that when we're trying to look at historical evidence and the epistemic accuracy of things, we take into factor parsimony, right?
Yeah.
So
parsimony?
let's say parsimony. So for example, let's say there's a dog here and a dog barks, you're not gonna think, okay, what if it was a cat that barked? What if it was a bird that barked? Oh.
Yeah.
You're gonna say it's probably a dog that barked because the dog is the one associated with barking normally, typically.
Yeah.
Then you look and then you see it's a dog.
Yeah.
That's the principle of parsimony. That's the simplest explanation,
Yeah.
and the simplest explanation is most likely to be the right explanation. Jesus has tons and tons and tons of secular and Christian and Judaistic evidence of existing.
Yeah.
Your religion says he exists.
Yeah, I don't deny that at all.
He exists. How does he exist? The genealogical accounts and the historical accounts say he existed as a Jew in this area, crucified, whatnot.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. If someone comes to you, a Christian comes to you, what it asks is for a link. You're saying you cannot ask me for a link if you do not have a link to Jesus.
No, I'm not saying that.
But you're saying,
I'm not.
then what are you saying?
Yeah, I'm saying. Remember, I said the way I understand history is that the amalgamation of tradition and the way people pass down things is not always in a book. It's not always written down. Okay, it's not. This is not how we.
So where's the other ones? Where's the oral tradition? Where's the any of that? We're not just asking for the book.
Yeah.
Right. What we're saying is, okay, we have this whole parsimonious view where Jesus definitely existed. Muhammad said he existed.
Yeah.
Christians say he existed. Messianic Jews and Jews say he existed. Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody has different interpretations.
Yeah.
Sunnis will say he didn't die, got replaced.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. He definitely existed and he existed this way across all these various religions. And so we have a link. Nobody's gonna deny it. Nobody's gonna deny the link between them and the Jews because he was a Jew. That's a necessary link. That's like me. You're an African. Let's just say you're African, for example.
Yeah.
I'm Nigerian.
Yeah.
I'm Nigerian and I'm here and I preach to everybody and then I die and then people say, oh, how do you know he was this? Bro, I'm Nigerian. I'm gonna have a link to Nigeria.
Of course, but just remember, there's a lot of I don't know if you know about this, but back in the day, so there's a lot of Africans. They'll be like, oh, back home I'm a king, because in Congo or Nigeria there's people.
But the thing is, the Africans still exist, locally and what do they call it? Anthropomorphically, the way that he says he exists. Jesus biologically, anthropomorphically existed as a Jewish man. But we're asking for the link of yours with all the rest, the way that we have a link with ours and all the rest. Is yours as parsimonious as the Christian one?
I believe so. We have in our tradition also a whole lineage of the Prophet Muhammad that goes all the way back to Ismail. We have it. The Arabs have it. They had it for hundreds of hundreds.
Is there a link between that and the Jewish account and the what do you call it? The Christian account, since you affirm that Jesus Christ was a Jew?
Well, we bypass the Christians in this regards and we say the Jewish people, the Jewish people themselves and the Muslims, for a very long time, knew, this man knows about this, he's a bit older, for a very long time, knew that the Arabs of a particular stock are descendants of Ishmael. Now, just going back, I am more interested in contextualizing Jesus Christ, because I think this is the best way we can really have a good understanding on what happened to him and who he was. If you look at Jesus contextually, in Jerusalem, despite being Jew, that was not enough to claim that he was within the lineage of David and Solomon and
the sons of Hagar.
Yeah.
If you look at it, it goes back to even Ishmael.
Yeah.
I'll give you a reference.
But what you said doesn't make sense because you know who Jacob is, right?
Yeah.
Jacob is Israel himself.
Yeah.
David is his descendant.
Yeah.
Necessarily, if you're a descendant of Jacob, you have to be a descendant of David on that line. Yeah. So if Jesus was a descendant of Jacob, if Jesus was Jew, he's going to be automatically a priori a descendant of Jacob in some kind, because that's what Jews are, descendants of Jacob.
And I agree with you, and I'm saying Isaac had a brother. And Isaac's brother had descendants too, and those descendants have been known to be the Arabs.
Yeah, but I don't know I don't know who started the argument with you, but his argument was saying, how do you link that back to the flip what's his name? Abraham or something.
No, so what he was saying is, he was saying to me, well, how do we know that the Prophet Muhammad is a descendant of Ismail? I said, well, it's within our tradition. Like, it's in his lineage. The Arab, it's known for hundreds of years. It's there when you look at it. Then outside of just the Arabs, because it's one thing if you claim it, then you go to other people, your cousins, and they say the exact same thing, and it's within that text as well. Jewish people lived in Medina for a very long time.
I don't think Jewish people gave an account of the Ishmael descendants.
Literally 2 weeks ago, I was watching rabbis discussing this issue because of the Israel and Palestine situation. It's axiomatic. You know, it's axiomatic. It's the same way we know. And obviously we have archaeological findings and other things nowadays with knowing that some of the British people were Anglo-Saxon, yeah? But this is something also that is passed down through, when a historian looks at stuff, they don't just look at archaeology, they look at tapestry, they look at hymns, they look at stories and things that...
I'm not sure. I don't think he was denying any of that, but he was just asking for any. What would you call it?
He was asking for evidence because he says like, what says who? That's what his argument was. But other than that, the argument I had with him was that the guy was a Muslim,
He was a Shia Muslim, my friend.
Yeah, a month and a half ago, he was a Shia Muslim, and there was something about Islam that attracted him. And before that, he was like atheist or socialist or whatever. So clearly, I don't know, he's told me before that he's on a spectrum, right? I'm not going to say that has negatively infected that. In fact, I say it's positively because he's very intelligent. So he's really at a high speed. You know, I was trying to have a conversation with him rather than a debate, and he was like pushing me into a debate, and then you came in. But my approach with Christianity is very unorthodox in terms of the orthodoxy that exists within the park. I have a very unorthodox approach to Christianity. I was Christian before, so I might have luggage there. However, I look at Christianity sometimes a bit more favorably, and I'm a bit more fit. I try to be as fair as possible and as objective as possible when I look at Christianity. And I don't have this like negative view on Christianity, and like even when it comes to ideas of like the Bible or the books being corrupted. I don't view the Bible, or I don't compare the Bible to the Quran, because I believe the structures and the history, the way it was compiled, are totally different. I believe it's a fallacy when people compare. Usually Muslims compare the Quran to the Bible. Like the Bible is something else. It functions differently, it's compiled differently, and it was compiled, you know, all of these things. So therefore you can't compare the two. So therefore I have a different approach when I look at the Bible, you know. I really appreciate talking to you.
Yeah, no problem.
And I do apologize if I was brass at certain points.
No problem. Me too, I apologize.
Yeah,
nice to meet you. Jesus.
Yeah.